Well, what do we have here? A high-end game set in the modern era about detectives who solve supernatural phenomenon relating to psychological brain rot and loss of identity? See, I've been telling you guys since 2023 how much HoYoverse's developers love Carl Jung's work. And I am so glad that my observations have finally paid dividends, because their newest IP announcement looks really interesting. For a while now, HoYoverse, formerly known as MiHoYo, has dominated the gacha gaming sphere, all while holding a very prominent and influential position in the global video game market. The company's unforeseen rapid growth resulted from a perfect set of coincidences that led to the explosive popularity of Genshin Impact during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. When the best entertainment options available for many people ranged from staring at their walls to playing video games. And Genshin's monumental achievement cannot be overstated, as the game remains HoYoverse's biggest intellectual property even 6 years later to this day. Genshin's success was shortly followed by the release of Honkai Star Rail in 2023, which became a titan of the turn-based genre, facing no real competition in terms of pure popularity until only recently in 2025 with the release of Clair Obscure Expedition 33. Keep in mind that Expedition 33 completely blows Star Rail out of the water. That game is a masterpiece. But the point I am making is that it literally took an actual masterpiece to rival what most would consider gacha slop in terms of global impact. Even Zenless Zone Zero, their most recent game in 2024, while not reaching the same heights as its predecessors, remains a very solid and profitable IP in its own right. So, what has the company been doing with the multi-generational wealth they have accumulated in recent years? As it turns out, they've been putting those resources to good work on several new IPs, and boy, they have been making some new games. We've got a Pokemon-style auto chess battler in the form of Honkai Nexus Anima, an Animal Crossing-inspired life simulator called Petite Planète, and recently, what appears to be their next big thing, an ultra-realistic high-fantasy game built in Unreal Engine 5, currently codenamed Genesis. Based on what we know so far, Genesis is poised to become HoYoverse's next major IP, which is exactly why I covered it on this channel. And here we are now, not even 2 weeks after teasing for Genesis, HoYoverse have announced yet another new game, Varsapura, meaning City of Rain. Just like Project Genesis, Varsapura, or City of Rain, is looking to be a next-gen game built using Unreal Engine 5. My condolences to all mobile players. The game is set in a very realistic modern world, with a skyline that takes clear inspiration from North American and East Asian architecture, but the overall environment carries a Southeast Asian vibe. Think something like Malaysia or Singapore. In fact, the game's title, Varsapura, happens to be a portmanteau of two Sanskrit words, Varsha and Pura, meaning rain and city respectively. Hence, the game's English title being City of Rain. Additionally, Varshapura or Varsapura may also be a play on Singapore's Malay name, Singapura, which is also the nation's name in Arabic, further cementing the game's Southeast Asian setting, specifically Malaysia and Singapore. Oh, and you can literally see Singaporean road signs while driving in-game. Thus, we can safely conclude that the story will take place in a fictionalized world closely mirroring Earth within the HoYoverse. Keep in mind that the planet is not literally Earth. We know this because we get to see a map of Varsapura, and while it's similar to Singapore, the two aren't identical. You're gonna see why this detail is important in a bit. Varsapura is a story-driven action-adventure that focuses on solving mysteries relating to supernatural psychological phenomenon. From the 30-minute demo released by the developers, we know that the game's combat will feature a multi-character swap system. Nothing new for HoYo's games. The main character, called a Hollow One, joins a Shadow Bureau organization known as SEALs, whose officers specialize in combating the Mind Rot, a phenomenon that leads to the manifestation of dark shadowy substance in both organic and inorganic subjects, some of which have a degree of sentience and are thus called shadow monsters. In order to eliminate the mind rot, SEALs officers will usually have to enter a location known as the Mind Bog, a specialized domain where shadow monsters can be directly dealt with and where thoughts can manifest as individual entities. Already, these are all themes and mechanics that many of you who have played HoYo's games before should be familiar with. For starters, Varsapura heavily integrates concepts from Jungian psychology in both its gameplay and world building. This isn't anything new for HoYo, as they have utilized the work of the Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung several times before in their games. Some excellent examples include the Narcissenkreuz saga in Fontaine, where the Jungian psychological archetypes are directly referenced, in addition to Amphorius and Penacony in Star Rail, both being digital worlds that don't exist in the physical universe, and both adding their own unique spin to Jung's work. Carl Jung's influence is blatantly obvious in Penacony, but in case anyone is confused about the Amphorius example, you can see it in the backstory of Electra, which is particularly interesting given that she is supposed to be a fish. Yeah, you're about to see why that's important. All of the aforementioned examples have specific locations or storylines where the developers borrowed from Carl Jung. But when it comes to Varsapura, the study of the mind and indeed the study of the brain are both going to be central elements to the plot. The fact that mind rot manifests enemies in the form of shadows is an immediate, clear-cut example of Jungian influence through the psychological concept of the shadow. Speaking of shadows, there are two types of shadow monsters we have seen so far. There are these humanoid entities called suits, along with these jellyfish, aptly named jellies. Now, it's crucial to remember that the jellies in question are not conventional jellyfish. They are products of the mind rot phenomenon, and are primarily found within the Mind Bog, a type of dreamscape or domain that operates on memories, thoughts, and the psyche. The presence of such jellyfish in the Mind Bog is a very strong indicator of the fundamental concepts that the developers are applying to Varsapura from the greater HoYoverse. And since Varsapura is a story that takes place within the HoYoverse, just like all of MiHoYo's other IPs, then the next logical step would be to consider where else we see these kinds of jellyfish in the HoYoverse. Well, jellyfish are a reoccurring motif for the Path of the Remembrance in Star Rail, and also the Path of the Enigmata. As a matter of fact, the Aeon of Enigmata, Mythos, who was likely born from the Remembrance, takes the form of a jellyfish. Furthermore, the character of Evernight, who belongs to the Path of the Remembrance, uses jellyfish-shaped flowers as her memo sprite, while the source of her power, known as Oblivion, originates from the Enigmata. This is really cool because Evernight happens to be the shadow of March 7th, who herself is a pure daughter of Anasrava. In other words, a child born from the Aeon of Remembrance fully. As mentioned earlier, the jellyfish in Varsapura are shadow monsters born from the mind rot, a phenomenon which can notably manifest as a liquid, shadowy substance. The Remembrance and the Enigmata are both associated with jellyfish, a type of aquatic animal that can be found in the sea, hence water, liquids. And in Star Rail, there happens to be a liquid substance known as Memoria, which actually exists almost everywhere in the universe, but is found in particularly high concentration within the Azdana star system. When assembled into large enough clusters, Memoria can form tangible spaces such as memory bubbles and dream bubbles, and it is the substance from which the entire dreamscape of Penacony is made. This is why visitors of the Reverie Hotel have to sleep in bathtubs filled with Memoria liquid to enter the actual dreamscape. The influence of Memoria can endow sentience to inanimate objects within the dreamscape, and much like how the sea on Earth is a primordial environment for life, Memoria serves as an excellent environment where memetic entities can be born or created. Gallagher is one such memetic entity, and he happens to be a Pathostrider of the Enigmata. Needless to say, Memoria is a clear manifestation of the power of the Remembrance, and likely the Enigmata as well. One that mimics the properties of water, hence why Memoria operates like the sea, with jellyfish, whales, and other aquatic life forms within it. Unsurprisingly, water is a major component of Varsapura's world-building mechanics. After all, Varsapura means a city of rain, and rain in this context is specifically in reference to the rain of thought, which precipitates from the collective thoughts of humanity, a direct allusion to the theoretical collective subconscious coined by Carl Jung. Like water stagnating without kinetic energy and becoming a hub of infestation, stagnant rain of thought can cause rot. As mind rot builds up in the mind bog, it erodes reality, driving people into madness, spawning monsters, and warping the physical world. What's interesting in all of this is that if you take a look at the mind bog that dissolves space and memories, you will immediately notice how similar it is to the Memoria black hole devouring the edge of Dreamflux Reef in Penacony. From this perspective, the rain of thought is Memoria rain, while the mind rot represents a stagnant Memoria that has succumbed to corruption, which by proxy implies that creatures born from the rain of thought or the mind rot are something akin to Memosprites or memetic entities, including Mr. Shadow, who recruits our main character into the seals. Regardless, it is essential to clarify that although dreams, memories, history, and time fall under the dominion of the remembrance and the enigmata, whether Fuli or Mythos are themselves involved in the world of Varsapura is entirely irrelevant. The main point behind the comparison I drew between those paths and what can be observed in Varsapura is to highlight and visualize the type of concepts that the developers are using in the world building of their new IP, along with where else in the HoYoverse we can observe said concepts. For example, the Jungian concept of the collective unconscious, the universal subconscious mind shared by all of humanity, which inspires Varsapura's reign of thought, has been applied previously in Genshin Impact during the story quest Dream Eater's Melancholia, when Yumi Mizuki takes the traveler into the Great Borderland, a vast realm embodying the collective dream of the nation of Inazuma, where the nightmare yokai Kuroyome had taken root. So, the last thing I want you to take from my explanation would be Fuli and Mythos being part of Varsapura. This isn't to say that they aren't involved, because they could be. However, the extent of their involvement has no bearing on what I want to convey, which are the parallels between Memoria and the Reign of Thought. All in all, Varsapura, or City of Rain, looks very promising, certainly worth keeping an eye on. The combat seems smooth and dynamic, the storyline showcased is intriguing, the world building is very clever, and graphically speaking, aside from Project Genesis, which to be fair we only have one 17-second teaser for so far, this looks like Hoyo's most advanced game yet. Is it going to be a character-based gacha? Probably. Is it going to be a good game? Well, I sure hope so, because I really dig the vibes and aesthetics. But that's all from me for now. As always, a huge thanks to everyone who supports this channel on Patreon, and thank you so much for watching till the end. For now, I've been My Name for Now, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.